Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of Find Ways to Win. I am your host, FitzgeraldStephens. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you're getting the day you plan for, you're working for, you visualize for, and you are expecting for. Want to give a first of all, a gratitude and a huge thank you for everyone who helped me actually push this channel to my first major goal of 1,000 subscribers. I hit that yesterday. So I'm very, very grateful to each and every one of you for that. Very grateful to God Almighty allowing that. Grateful to you guys subscribing, sharing, telling other people about it. So we can help get this content out. I am very, very appreciative. There is no me without people who are supporting me, and I'm grateful for that, and I appreciate that. Want to talk to you guys about a subject matter called effective communication, the lifeblood of relationships. Effective communication, the lifeblood of relationships. All relationships are built, maintained, and sustained or destroyed by communication. And so we often hear about how people communicate is vital. So many things go into communication: the tone of voice, the body language, being able to use pauses and being able to use elevation of the voice or de-escalation of the voice at times. Communication matters, ladies and gentlemen. And so often we think we're communicating with someone or we're getting a point across, but the receiver is hearing a whole nother thing. Meanwhile, if we're not sensitive to that or we're not in tune with that, we actually think we're being effective. So and especially if the listener doesn't say anything or we're not reading their body language or reading their energy, they are totally missing the point, or they're hearing a whole nother thing than what we're actually saying. That can destroy marriages, that can destroy businesses, that can destroy friendships if you are an ineffective communicator. So we're going to talk about how to be an effective communicator, making sure that what you're saying is being communicated to the person in a way that they understand it. Communication involves two main components. Number one, you have to have the messenger, and number two, you have to have the receiver. Now, between those two, the messenger and the receiver, how is that message coming across to people? You got to be confident upon that, because effective communication is vital that you understand. I'd like to make a reference to a book that everyone needs to take a strong look at. Probably should be in everyone's library. I bought the book 4 times. I still have it right now. It's called Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It is a handbook about effective communicating, making sure that your message is being received by the person or the audience that you are speaking to. Some people have a tendency to undertalk or overtalk, or not exasperate a point, or stay on a point too long, or stay on a point a lot long enough. Either way, you have to pause, and you have to take little time outs. Is this receiver, is this person, is this audience receiving what I'm saying to them? And the way you know they're receiving, they're connected with you. They're giving you body language that indicated they're hearing you. Maybe a nod in the head. Maybe they're leaning forward. Maybe they're putting their hand on they're putting their chin on their hand, and they're thinking and they're mulling over. Maybe they're actively taking notes. But there's going to be some outward expression if you are properly communicating. Many people have thought that, hey, if this person didn't understand what I was saying, so what? That's wrong. But if you talk for effect, you talk to get a point across. You just don't use your words frivolously, haphazardly, without thought, and without expecting the proper income. I've been around many leaders and people who are very, very good at communicating, and even still today they will tell you that they have to constantly work on their communication skills. I have the pleasure of knowing very successful people, and people who are built great empires and great enterprises, and people who have achieved great things far as within their lives. All that came about through communication, being able to communicate with an audience, being able to connect with an audience, being able to galvanize an audience to their cause, being able to reach people sometimes often on an emotional level, because once you're able to stir the emotions of a person and you get the emotions involved, they're more likely going to listen to you more intently, as opposed that you're not stirring emotions. Just a little sidebar on the power of communication. Now, how do you know if you're connecting? How do you really know if you're connecting? People are asking you questions. People are giving you feedback. I have often said to individuals, "Hey, I'm not a mind reader. You have to tell me exactly what you want. You have to tell me what you're saying, especially if they're speaking to me, because I don't like to fill in the blanks. I'm a very much a direct thinker. I'm very much a person. I take you at your word. I look for you to be able to communicate your objective to me clearly and precisely with good concrete information, and I look for you to be able to follow up with me and be able to recognize whether I'm connected with you or not. I'm one of those persons. I'm going to make it kind of easy for you, because I'm going to tell you, like, hey, what did you mean by that? Or can you explain that a little bit more? So what you're saying is this. But that's me. A lot of people, for the lack of they don't want to, for the lack of courage, they don't want to, for example, they don't want to feel that they're offending someone. They don't want to feel like they don't want to feel that that the receiver is going to think that they are not intelligent because they're not connecting with him, or they're not understanding, and or even the worst of all, someone who is told something, or someone who to an audience, they're communicated something and they act like they understand, when in essence they don't have a clue what you're talking about. Or they will look at it and say, I think I understand, and go out and do something totally different. The way you gauge yourself, interact with your audience, interact with the people you're talking to. This goes great for husband and wives, and on that type of relationship, because often men and women are very, very different in their communication styles. They're very, very different in their receiving styles, and so many marriages have hit the rocks because of lack of communication. But sometimes many wives think their husband are mind readers. Husbands get out the thing, say, hey, I said it. I meant what I say. What is there not to understand it? What is there not to understand? But both of them are kind of need to take a step back and look like, hey, is he receiving what I'm saying? Is he or am I saying this the right way, so that this person can understand exactly what I mean? Many a times people don't, and people assume that they're effective in communicating, when in essence they're not. And how do you know if you're effective communicating? How do you know if you have communicated your objective in a way that is understood? People move in the course of action and according to your words. And once you start seeing them move, you know that you have communicated your objective clearly and precisely. You have to work on your communication. You have to take note about yourself. How am I coming across to people? How am I connecting with people? How are people perceiving what I'm saying? And the way you do that, you start asking questions. Did you understand it? Did you hear me? Are we on the same page? Okay, yes. Okay, can you repeat to me what you heard? Can you repeat to me what you heard? That's a vital question, because when you and then you sit back and listen, allow them to talk, and then they'll give their expression the way they heard. And if it's on point, Like, great. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. If it's not, okay, let me clarify this. Let me clarify this a little bit more, because this is not what I was fully trying to communicate. Very, very important. Very, very important. You understand that. If you're talking to an audience and you're looking at a wide range of people understand. People are hearing you based upon their internal receiver. One person sitting in a chair can hear the message clearly and precisely and soundly, and it makes perfect sense to them. Another person is going to need more detail. It's a little foggy to them. It's not exactly clear. So it behooves you as a speaker, or as a person who is a communicator, to connect with your audience, to ask questions, to slow down, to get feedback, to learn how to use pauses. And pauses are used for effect. People will often pause. Rather, a speaker will often pause, and what they're trying to do, they're trying to let a person mull over what they have said, to think about what they have said. I was talking to a friend of mine who has built a very successful online business, and he's an incredible communicator. But had conversation with him. He'll say, sometimes just like people don't get it. They're not moving in a way that I was saying. It's just clear, and it's just logical. Well, this gentleman happens to be a very, very logical, orderly thinker. So he uses excitement. He uses clear, precise words. But even sometimes he even has a problem connecting with everybody. And understand, you are not always going to connect with your audience or the person you talking to. That is really not for them to decipher what you mean. It is up to you to clearly communicate what you mean in clear, precise objectives. Now, number two, it'll help you to be an effective communicator by having an objective, even a written objective. Often you'll see speakers or people speak with notes, especially they're going to an audience. They want to keep their mind one track. You want to keep your mind laser focused. You got to keep your mind on your audience, on the person who you're trying to talk to, who you're trying to effectively communicate. Because understand this, it's your job to make sure that your audience or the person you speak to are understanding what you are trying to say. Now, you don't think that everyone thinks like you. You don't think that everyone is going to see things like you. You don't think it's so easy, as my dad would say, hey, it's so easy that it's like pouring water on a boot with the instructions on the bottom. Well, not everyone thinks like that. Not everyone receives like that. And so we see many a times that relationships are often on the rock, and you really start analyzing, and you really, if you have the luxury of counseling people or talking with individuals on the whys, which I have done, one of the main key always seems to come back that this person doesn't listen to me. This person doesn't listen to me. Ma'am, sir, they are listening. They're not fully receiving what you're saying. So you have to back up, punt. How am I being effective? Are you hearing me? Are you understanding me? How do you see this? What did I say back to you? If you learn how to be an effective communicator, if you learn how to give effective speech, your career in life is going to skyrocket. All people desire to be listened to, desire to be heard, desire to be understood. And the big way you understand a person, they have to feel that you are attentively listening to them. But they can't really attentively listen to you if you're not properly communicating with them the way they hear and the way they understand. You have to put your pride aside and saying, hey, I said it, that's good enough. You know how many relationships have been ruined with parents with their children by that? You know how many marriages have been destroyed or being greatly hampered right now because a person refuses to follow up on their communication with the person they're talking to. You know how many times, how many misunderstandings come about because someone thought they heard something and they heard a whole nother complete thing that the person who was speaking did not follow up with them and ask them. And when is the follow up going on? As you're speaking, you're constantly following up through your presentation. You're constantly following up through your communication. You're being effective. You're being effective by the way you choose to engage with them. And to be effective is to take note, is how am I coming across? Is this person getting my message? Is this person understanding? Is this person moving in the direction that I'm trying to communicate? Now, I'm not talking about if someone has a different way of bringing a task to fruition, even after they had clearly heard you. That's a different topic. That is not for this stream. But what is for this stream, at least they heard you. And to hear, ladies and gentlemen, is also to understand. Whether you want to use terms, do you feel me? You hear me? Are we good? What do you think? All those can be follow-up phrases to see if you're connecting. Now, what is your job in order to learn to be an effective communicator? Because once again, your life is going to be greatly shaped or hampered by your ability to effectively communicate or lack thereof. You got to study great communicators. You got to study people who have a knock for communicating on a scale that you admire and other people admire. You got to look at them. You got to look at their body language. You got to listen to their voice. You got to listen to see how they're using their tones, how they're using their words. Do they talk too much? Do they talk too little? Are they excited about what they're saying? One of the speakers I started listening to well over 30 years ago is a gentleman by the name of Anthony Robbins. Now, Anthony Robbins is a world-renowned speaker, gifted in motivation, gifted in communication. But you would think his words, it's what he says. It's not his words. That's not where his power comes from. His power comes in his ability to animate, his ability to move. He communicates not necessarily by his words as the main vehicle. He communicates by his action. He's animated. He's moving his hands. He's walking. He's raising his voice. He has excitement through his voice. Grant Cardone's another guy like that. He does similar. He does similar things. Far as when he's making sure he's connecting, he takes his time, but when he speaks, it's very, very powerful. And whoever your speaker is, or whoever your favorite one is too, study them, read their books, study their YouTube channels, look at how they're communicating, and read the audience, especially if they're speaking to a room. Look at the response of the people, pan out into the audience and look at their connecting. Now, it's a little easier than when you're actually with someone one-on-one or a small group, because you're actually able to see them face to face. You're actually able to read their energy. If that's a gift of yours, you're actually able to interact with them more on a one-on-one, almost like a consultative basis. But people do what they hear. People do what they hear. So it would make sense that if people are doing wrong, could it be that they're hearing wrong? That doesn't necessarily hold true for all cases, but could it be that people are doing wrong because they're hearing wrong? Could it be that people are moving in certain directions because they thought that's what you were saying, as opposed to what you was actually communicating? No, we have to take inventory of ourselves. Communication is a skill, just like learning physics, or learning engineering, or learning law, or learning English, or learning a foreign language. It is a skill. It has to be developed. Not everyone is born to be an effective communicator. You can have the ingredients of effective communicator, but you must work on your craft. I am a speaker. I have no problem speaking with with large audience, small audience. I just like to communicate. Well, over the years, I had to get better at that. I had to learn to see, how am I being effective, or I'm just talking. Sadly, in my younger years, I just talked. No purpose really for the words, or if I wasn't gauging whether my purpose was connecting. I was being too frivolous with my words. I spoke too much sometimes. I spoke too little sometimes. I wasn't using the proper body language. I wasn't using the proper tone, and therefore I wasn't connecting. I constantly was in a situation, in one relationship in particular, that was very, very important to me. I used to say to this individual, I didn't mean that. That's not what I was saying. I wasn't saying that. I mean, where do you get this from? That's not what I meant. And for years that frustrated me, until I realized that I'm the problem. I'm the one trying to communicate my objective to this individual. Is it really her fault or his fault that they're not hearing me properly? You only hear what you receive. And then on another thing, you got to make sure that that the person you're speaking to, let's call it the receiver, it's tuned, it's properly tuned. And you can often say, well, I want you guys I want you guys to listen to me with an open mind, or leave your prejudice behind, or leave your ways of what you think I'm going to say, or what you think I mean. Check that at the door and listen to what I'm actually saying. Listen to what I'm actually trying to communicate. Now, I suggest that be done within the beginning. And I suggested that continue throughout the whole presentation. Now, people are going to say, well, perhaps that's a waste of time, or that's going to take more time. Let me ask you something. Do you want to be heard, or you want to talk? Do you want effective communication, or you just want to go in there thinking, well, maybe you had a good conversation? Good conversation is not effective communication, ladies and gentlemen. You can have good conversation, but if it's not stirring action, it's not effective communication. And which is the crux of the whole deal. Effective communication stirs effective action. Do you mean by effective actions? Actions that are moved and brought about based on how you have been communicated to. Very, very important that we understand this. Very, very important that we take inventory and take stock in ourselves and see how we're communicating. You might want to record yourself on your smartphone and listen to your voice. For years, I didn't like the sound of my own voice. It just sounded odd to me and weird to me, like many people it do, because you're not used to hearing your own voice. But if you record it, and you'll get used to it, and you can start seeing, hey, how was I sounding? Was I offensive in that word? Did I use the wrong word? How was my body language? Was I reading this person energy? Was I looking at the eyes? Was I looking at their body? Would they seem like they were squirming when I said certain things, or were they leaning forward, which is a huge effective communication choosing signal? Were they being attentive? Were they not playing with their cell phones while I was talking? Were their eyes looking out the window while I was talking? All those are signs that you're not communicating properly. And more importantly, what you want to ask, what are you hearing? What did you hear me say? What did you think you heard what I said? Ladies and gentlemen, some of the highest paid people on this earth are effective communicators. They have mastered the art of communication. They have mastered the art of getting their message over clear and precisely, and being able to get the necessary course of action that they was trying to communicate through their communication to their audience, or to the individual. Now, that we often hear about situations where maybe a parent is trying to communicate with a child. They're frustrated because the child is not hearing. Well, you got to take in the variables. They're processing it like a child. They're processing like maybe a young adult. I run into many parents who have this trouble with their children. Like, they just don't hear me, or they just want to do their wrong way. They just want to go their own way, should I say? No, sir, no, ma'am. That may be the cause. That may be a cause, but not necessarily the root of the cause. Are you communicating on a level that they understand? Or do they feel like they're being listened to, or they feel like they're being talked to? It's a big difference. Do they feel like you're vibing with them, or they feel like you're just shouting at them and telling them exactly what they're going to do in wrong tones and wrong manners? Actually, people are going to shut down from that. And so you have to look and think, okay, study this, study your style, study this person, look at them, ask questions. Am I communicating? Am I doing right? Is this proper for you? Is this working well for you? And because you want them to leave your presence knowing that they felt good about how you talk to them, how you communicated with them, even if they disagree with what you have said. And people have that right to disagree, but make sure they understand what you have to say. Ladies and gentlemen, take time to improve your craft of communication. For if you do, it is no height that can't take you to. If you're an effective communicator, it is no company that will not want you on their staff. It is no people that you cannot galvanize to give you funds and to give you support far as for your endeavor. But you got to make sure that they understand what you're trying to say. You can't assume anything. Get assumption out your life. That doesn't belong in the vocabulary of an effective communicator. People want to be heard. They want to be listened to. They want to receive your message based on the level of respect they feel that you're giving them. They want to receive your message based on the level of connectivity that they feel with you. They want to be engaging with you, and they want to have the liberty to ask you questions, or if you're not properly communicating, and you should have the same liberty to ask them questions to see if they are properly receiving. Communication is a circle, a really circle. The receiver is not more important than the sender. The sender is not more important than the receiver. Everyone matters who you're trying to communicate with. So, ladies and gentlemen, take inventory, take stock. Begin to improve that. Begin to study speakers. Begin to read good books, and begin to learn how to use your words for effect. Begin to learn how to talk for purpose, to communicate a clear objective. One of the main tools I found is that you could say before you start engaging with someone, "This is what I'm trying to communicate." And you say that, "This is what I'm trying to communicate," and you tell them that thing that you're trying to communicate. That will take a whole lot of the friction away like that, because then they can tune directly in to your message, that what you were saying, that you want to go, that you're trying to give them. So work on your game, work on your craft. Work if you desire to be a speaker, or you don't desire to be a speaker. Either way, you're going to have to communicate. You're going to have to communicate. For those of you who think people should read your mind, get rid of that antiquated philosophy. For those of you who think, and who like to hear yourself talk, and you like to feel that your audience always connect with you, and they understand, and because you're keeping it real and everything like that. How do you know? Do you ask? Have you asked them? Have you asked them? How do they hear you? What do they think about what you say? Very, very important. Whether you run an organization of one, which is yourself, or whether you run an organization of 100,000, communication is going to be the lifeblood of your relationship. It is absolutely vital that you learn how to become an effective communicator. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Once again, I'd like to thank you guys for all the support, enabled me to reach that goal of 1,000, and we're already reset my next goal of 10,000. Thank you guys very much. Please hit like and subscribe and share this stream. And once again, we thank you for listening to Find Ways to Win with Fitzgerald Stephens. Have an awesome day.